I've been,
Sheryl, oh, great.
I've been reminded of just how important this tapestry community is to me. I miss all of you. I miss being together in person on Sunday mornings. I miss having coffee with you and sharing stories. I miss hearing our voices in unison as we sing. I miss all of that, but I continue to be grateful for each one of you and for what you and together we stand for as a religious community. I belong here and you belong here just as we are. So welcome to Tapestry. It's really good to be together this morning. I'd like to thank you now in advance for your patience as we continue to navigate this new way of being together in community. I'd also remind you now to please keep your microphone muted, unless you're supposed to be talking like I was, throughout the service. However, we would love to see your lovely faces if you're willing to keep your video on. Also, if you haven't already done so, this would be a good time to bring your chalice or candle with you so that later we might light our individual flames in the hope of together shining a bright light of justice and love out to the world. Now is the time in our service to greet one another and welcome newcomers to our community. I, and I know you, would really love to shake hands and hug, but for now, would you please just take a minute to use the chat function to extend a greeting to those here with us. In spite of not being able to be together in person in worship, there are still several ways for us to connect as a community throughout the week, including our meditation groups, Friday lunch gatherings, book groups, social justice actions, and other Tapestry Zoom events. You can always find information on our website, our newsletter, or the order of service. I'd like to remind you that today, after the service, we will be holding our annual meeting. Please plan on participating and having your voice heard and your vote count. The easiest way for you to do this is just stay right on this Zoom conference to attend the meeting. There's no need for you to leave and sign back in. So please, after the service, use that time to talk, grab coffee, and then be back for the meeting. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. These words, adapted from our UU hymn, have been running through my mind over the last 3 weeks. The people have taken to the streets with rage, with perseverance, and in a rainbow of bodies in ways that I have never seen, after we all witnessed the senseless murder of yet one more Black man, George Floyd. Our hearts were broken as we watched his life being taken and heard his pleas for mercy, while the police officers gazed seemingly unfazed into the cameras recording it all. But this isn't the first time we've seen racial prejudice, police violence directed toward Black people in our community. But why does this time feel so different? Some people say this outpouring is in part in reaction to our current administration. And it's true. For the last 3 years plus, voices of people spewing hate and evil have been heard in appalling numbers and encouraged by our administration. These voices have erased any illusion that racial prejudice is non-existent. The murder of George Floyd has been a mandate to the people of this country that Black lives do matter. Police officers have taken a knee with protesters, and time will tell if this is indeed a show of solidarity that extends beyond this public display. Public figures in all sectors are standing up and speaking out, but we've grown accustomed in this country to being outraged one day and to forget the next. The giant yellow letters spelling out Black Lives Matter in front of the White House will be meaningless unless the message serves as a symbol to keep the fight alive. The culture of institutional racism runs deep and is going to require continued work by each and every one of us if we're going to see any lasting change. Despite Justice Roberts' court years ago declaring that America was over its racism, we know nothing could be further from the truth. What is true is that we have found ways to put Band-Aids on the larger systemic problem. When you put a Band-Aid on a wound without first tending to it, infection festers and spreads, and when it has nowhere else to go, it spills out. In the words of Brian Stevenson, everything we are seeing is a symptom of a larger disease. We've never honestly addressed all the damage was done during the 2.5 centuries that we enslaved Black people. The great evil of American slavery wasn't the involuntary servitude. It was the fiction that Black people aren't as good as white people and aren't the equals of white people and are less evolved, less human, less capable, less worthy, less deserving than white people. So this is a pivotal moment in our country. The power is with us, the people, to bring about some lasting changes in this deep-rooted institutional and cultural racism we're living with. Those of us who have enjoyed white privilege for years can't turn our backs on the seeping wounds of racism now that they've been fully uncovered. The issue is exposed now. Countries around the world are standing with us, and it's time for us to bring about the changes needed to earn the respect of all of us as citizens of this country and the world. Every one of us needs to do what we can, and when we've done that, we need to do more. This can't be something that we energize ourselves for in the short term. We need to stand together and believe that together we can peacefully push and shove and march and write and talk and listen and learn and teach until we have a country where the wound can finally heal and justice can roll down like water and peace in an ever-flowing stream. Now, if you would bring out your chalice so that we might light them together. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us all. Please join me in saying our covenant, followed by our song of affirmation. And because Zoom can only recognize one voice at a time, please keep your microphones muted, but read along with me in your homes. Love is the spirit of this congregation and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another.
This week, as so much of the world is uprooted and turned upside down, our LGBT siblings are celebrating Pride in their various and sundry ways around the world, really. So this opening reading is in recognition of Pride. It comes from Hannah Roberts Villeneuve. She writes, "People sometimes ask, is Pride a protest or a party? The answer is, of course, yes. And why not? Why not rejoice as we resist? Dance as we demand change. Celebrate as we create community that delights in all of who we are." So bring all of that with you this morning. Bring your policy demands, bring your glitter, bring your Supreme Court broken heart, bring your rainbow socks, bring the emptiness you feel for your siblings gone too soon. Bring your Gloria Estefan remix. Bring your tender hope for change. Bring your most garish eyeshadow. Bring your spirit, tattered and battered by a world that seems insistent on choosing fear and hate. Gather up all these things and bring them here, to a place where we don't have to shoulder these burdens or celebrate these joys alone. Come and let us worship together, friends. Good morning and welcome to our time to be together in worship. Our opening hymn this morning is number 38, Morning Has Broken, and we have Matthew Bridson leading us in hymns today.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the wood. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlight from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where our feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden softly. Praise with elation, praise every morning, love's recreation of a new day.
For our Time for All Ages this morning, I have a story that tells us the history of that rainbow flag that so many of us are familiar with. Even our kids, I think, are familiar with the rainbow flag. We see it all over the place. But I think it's worthwhile spending a couple of minutes knowing where that beautiful rainbow came from and how it came to represent the LGBT community. So here we go. You have to give them hope. Hope for a better world, hope for a better tomorrow. Harvey Milk was an extraordinary man, but he had an extraordinary dream. Was an ordinary man, sorry, but he had an extraordinary dream. That dream would change history. Harvey dreamed that everyone, even gay people, would have equality. He dreamed that he and his friends would be treated like everyone else. He dreamed that one day people would be able to live and love as they pleased. With his New York accent, Harvey talked to everyone about his dream. His voice boomed, his body bounced with energy and excitement. Some people listened, a few agreed, most did not though. But Harvey's big voice and his big dream wouldn't be stopped. He discovered that the best way to change the laws was to help make the laws. In 1977, Harvey Milk took a big step toward that dream when he became one of the first openly gay people to be elected to political office in the United States. Harvey and his friends planned marches to protest inequality and unfair laws. And just days before one of the marches, Harvey had an idea. A symbol, he thought. We need a symbol that shows who we are and how we feel. Something to carry during the march, something to make people feel they're part of a community, something to give people hope, something extraordinary. Harvey knew an artist who could help, Gilbert Baker. Harvey asked, Gilbert said, "We need a flag." Volunteers arrived to help Gilbert's design come true. Together, they dipped fabric into large barrels filled with vibrant dyes. They cut and pieced and sewed until Harvey, Gilbert, and the other activists had a flag with 8 colorful stripes, a flag that Harvey hoped would give hope. He says, rights are won only by those who make their voices heard. And on June 25th, 1978, when it was time for the march, a breeze stirred in San Francisco and the flag unfurled. The wind blew, the flag fluttered, flapped, and flew. A rainbow as bright and unique as the men and women who walked behind it led the march. Harvey and the people asked for equality. They asked to be treated like everyone else. They asked to live and love as they pleased. They hoped the march would make a difference. Harvey was proud of the flag and proud of himself. He hoped others would be proud too. 5 months later, on the morning of November 27th, 1978, Harvey and the mayor of San Francisco, George Moscone, were assassinated. Their lives were taken by a man who did not think like Harvey, or feel like him, or love like him. The flag did not fly on that dark, sad night. Instead, thousands and thousands of people marched silently, carrying candles. The candlelight wove through the streets of San Francisco, up and down the hills and around the city buildings. A mile of glowing candlelight in honor of 2 lives lost. That could have been the end of Harvey's dream and the colorful flag, but it wasn't. More rainbow flags were created. Some of the colors changed. 8 stripes became 6 stripes, but the meaning of the flag did not change. It was a flag of equality. More and more people began to think of the flag as their flag, and they began to feel pride, and they began to have hope. In 1994, Gilbert Baker designed another rainbow flag. This one was larger than all the rest. Women and men side by side carried the flag. A proud, mile-long rainbow floated through New York City. The flag wove through the streets, up and down avenues and boulevards and around city buildings. The people demanded equality. They demanded to be treated like everyone else. They demanded to live and love as they please. They were proud. They had hope, and they would make a difference. I ask for a movement to continue, for the movements to grow. More rainbow flags were made. Some were printed on bumper stickers and t-shirts. Others were hoisted onto lamp posts on Halsted Street in Chicago. One was hung in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Soon the rainbow flag was flying in other countries like Brazil, England, Israel, Russia, Singapore, and Turkey. The rainbow flag now unfurled on farms, in suburbs, and in cities. The flag flew proudly outside public buildings, hotels, shops, restaurants, churches, and homes. And once, on June 26, 2015, the White House was awash in the colors of the rainbow flag. Equality, pride, hope, love. Harvey's dream became a flag for us all. Here ends our reading. This morning's reading comes to us from Audre Lorde, a Black feminist, lesbian, activist, writer, powerful, amazing person. She writes, "For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone, for those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, for those of us who were imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we're afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we're afraid it might not rise in the morning. And when we speak, we're afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we're silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive." Here ends our reading.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrow say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul, it is well. It is well with my soul. Though pain, tribulation, and trial should come, let this simple prayer now console. Though I have regarded my helpless estate, I shall know it is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul, it is well. It is well with my soul. Well, I bear it down, and no answers arise, and all is beyond my control. My heart still can rest in the peace I have found, and proclaim it is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul, it is well. It is well with my soul.
Would you join me now for a short time of prayer and meditation? Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming, we gather in thanks for this good day to be together, to remind one another of our commitments and of our network of both support and challenge that calls us on our way. This has been another complicated week filled with challenging news and glimmers of hope. So many different words and ideas and feelings. And so we pause now in the comfort of community. We pause to let go of some of those words and ideas. We pause to find stillness in our minds so that our hearts might open a little more fully. So I invite you to sit back now, feel the chair beneath you, and know that this community, though separated by distance, is unified in spirit. Sit back and let us take a few deep breaths together. In and out. In and out. We join now in a time of stillness, quiet, and calm. Namaste. Amen and blessed be. I was glad to share the story of the rainbow flag today with our children, well, and I guess with everyone. Most of them are familiar with the flag as a symbol for the community, but it's good to get a little bit of a sense of the history. There's one piece of the history of the flag that was left out of this book for some reason. It's one that's always been important to me. Maybe it's because I love symbols, I don't know. But when Gilbert Baker designed the rainbow flag for his LGBT community, it had 8 stripes. Each of those stripes represented something that was significant to the liberation and health of the community. Hot pink for sexuality, red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, turquoise for magic and art, indigo for serenity, and violet for spirit. It's a pretty amazing list of what's important to a community's health. Sexuality, life, healing, sunlight, nature, magic and art, serenity and spirit. As we heard from the book, the LGBT community adopted this new flag with gusto. It appeared in shop windows and in clothing and jewelry. It even made its way around the world as a symbol of LGBT pride. That history of our flag holds within it a much bigger story of our human communities. It tells us how quickly a collection of values and ideals gets supplanted with a very straightforward group identity in our minds. If you ask anyone today what the rainbow flag stands for, nearly every adult in the United States knows that it's a symbol for the LGBT community. But I had to look up exactly what those original 8 colors symbolized. I'm talking about the rainbow flag today because it's the time of year when communities around the world celebrate Pride. And Pride is in June in commemoration of the Stonewall riots. The Stonewall riots were a series of spontaneous, violent demonstrations by members of the community in response to a police raid that began in the early morning hours of June 28th, 1969. It was at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, New York City. After years of being beaten and harassed by police, the community began to fight back, literally, with fists and bricks and fires. Every year across the United States and now in many parts of the world, June is a time for celebration and parades and parties as the LGBT community stands its ground in a culture that would rather plug up its ears and turn the other way. This year in Los Angeles, though, something remarkable is happening. The usual rainbow festoon parade and party is being transformed. This year, a panel of Black LGBT leaders is organizing the event. At this moment, June 14th, 11 a.m., we're a few minutes late, but the All Black Lives Matter Solidarity March kicks off in place of the Los Angeles Pride Parade. Rather than focusing on the expression of LGBT liberation, this year the organizers' march amplified Black queer voices and to come together in solidarity. The march specifically supports Black Lives Matter and its demands to, number one, prosecute killer cops, and number two, defund the police and reinvest in the community. You know, it's funny how important details get left out when we tell our histories. Too often, Stonewall Rebellion is described as a protest of gay white men. But Marsha P. Johnson, a Black drag queen, and Sylvia Rivera, a Latina transgender woman, were the two people who first had the courage to fight back that night. A Black drag queen and a Latina transgender woman initiated the rebellion that became a movement. At some level, I'm so grateful to see the Los Angeles gay community march in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. But the truth is, there was no choice. Unless we totally deny our history of police brutality, unless we actively erase the fact that our own liberation movement was sparked by transgender people of color, we have no choice but to show up in this moment. This morning's reading, I imagine, was a little jarring. In my 13 years of ministry, I've never used this reading in a worship service because it was just too much. The writer, Audre Lorde, a Black lesbian feminist, clearly and boldly describes the reality of speaking up for your rights from the fringes. She writes, "When the sun rises, we're afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we're afraid it might not rise in the morning. And when we speak, we're afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed, but when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive." Those are incredibly hard words to hear. I think it's important, as many of us struggle with what to do and how much to get involved, it's important to remember that that struggle is a privilege that many have not had. For those deemed as expendable, for those who have been erased, for those who were never meant to survive, there's no real choice but to speak, even if it's in the language of riots. For most of us, our involvement in this moment is a choice. I had the opportunity to participate in a few protests this week, grieving the death of George Floyd and highlighting the issues of police brutality. One I attended was in Aliso Viejo. Actually, Tapestry member Michelle Antonesi was one of the organizers. And at the protest in Aliso Viejo, one of the speakers really caught my attention. Kelsey Brewer is a young Black woman who lives in South Orange County. I'm sure we will be hearing more from her. She said that she had been participating in a bunch of different protests in the area. She told us about having woken up that morning and feeling really deeply sad. And she couldn't shake these feelings, and she realized she needed to sit down for a few minutes with her journal and think through what was going on. She realized in a few minutes that she was carrying a deep grief for the death of George Floyd. She didn't know him personally, but he could easily have been any one of the Black men in her life that she knew and loved, her family. She was scared and deeply saddened by that reality. Even for her, a politically engaged young Black person, and all the hustle and the bustle of protest and learning about public policy and writing and speaking, she needed to take some time out to better understand what she was feeling. And she invited this mostly white South Orange County crowd to do the same thing. She said, go home tonight and get clear about why you chose to come to this protest today. I spoke very briefly at the same protest. I told the crowd that when I got in my car to drive over there from Tapestry, the temperature in my car read 93 degrees. This was going to be very, very uncomfortable. But I was scheduled to speak and people were expecting me. Slowly but surely on the drive over, I realized maybe this should be uncomfortable. After all, we're gathering to remember the gruesome reality of police violence. The murder of a Black man in broad daylight in front of colleagues who seemed indifferent. And of course, this isn't just about George Floyd. It's about a list of names that's longer than anyone dare imagine. For centuries in the United States, many have held an unspoken agreement that the lives of Black people are expendable, and the use of violence and murder is an appropriate tool for keeping the political and emotional will of that community suppressed. This is uncomfortable stuff. We're not so good at sitting with uncomfortable information or dealing with uncomfortable facts. You need look no further than the wide sweeping denial about the deadly disease that we currently face. While COVID-19 infection rates continue to climb in Orange County, elected leaders decided it's no longer required to wear masks. Since you're uncomfortable at home, go get a bite to eat, they say. Go do a little shopping. Go enjoy yourselves and ignore the mountains of scientific data that tell us these activities are dangerous. It's hard work holding on to difficult information or painful reality. But if we want actual change, that is our work. I'm deeply pleased to see some cities taking police reform. LA has been a leader, actually, but nothing has actually changed yet. It feels good to see those pictures of police kneeling and to read stories of policy changes. We want to celebrate a little, and hope is okay. Hope is essential. We can still hope for change, but the change we're looking for, the change we so desperately need, is a long, long way down the road. The profound racial disparities in housing, wealth, employment, and education haven't changed. The factors that contribute to over-policing Black people and Black communities haven't changed. White supremacy hasn't changed. Until actual change occurs, our duty of holding on to and digging into those uncomfortable realities continues. Meaningful change is slow and uncomfortable. It's kind of like dieting. Quick fixes and rapid change aren't enough to really solve the problem. A crash diet may provide a satisfying and distracting image of an improved self, but it doesn't last. We have something much more dangerous than a few extra pounds to shed. We have hundreds of years of culture of white supremacy, hundreds of years of some bodies being disposable because they are not white. The past few weeks have been eye-opening for many Americans. Eye-opening like stepping on the scale for the first time in several years, or the doctor telling you that there is a problem with your weight. Our eye-opening experience is not the end of racism in America. Hopefully it's a new beginning to progress too long delayed, though. It's a beginning of what remains to be long, hard struggle. Tremendous amounts of money have to be reallocated for change to occur. Tremendously powerful institutions like police unions and political parties, I'm talking all political parties, have to be publicly criticized and held accountable. Together, we have to come to terms with the brutality of white American history. And maybe most challenging, we all have to come to terms with the mental habits, the internalized biases that have gotten us here in the first place. I mean, all of us. Kelsey Brewer asked us all to go home from that protest and to think about why we were there. My sense is, if we really intend to stay in this hard work, the motivation has to be more than a quick label. We can't show up because it's the liberal thing to do or the Unitarian thing to do. To sustain ourselves, we must remember our values, our rainbow of ideals, our 7 principles. Remember that thing that broke in your heart when you saw the video of George Floyd being choked. I'm not talking just about a sense of anger or sadness that welled up. The flip side is also really important. That murder in the street was an affront to our basic sense that human life is valuable. The grotesque authority of police officers exercised offends our sense of fairness, our sense of justice. These core values that we sometimes take for granted are actually very fragile things. They're challenged around us every day in ways big and small. So I guess what this sermon boils down to is a big homework assignment. Why do you care about this moment? There are lots of good reasons. Do you know and care about someone who is Black? Is your basic sense of fairness appalled? Do you reject unnecessary violence? There are so many good reasons to proclaim Black Lives Matter. But what is your reason for showing up? Amen. It's the custom of our congregation to share half of the collection with an organization that shares our values. For the month of June, our collection during the worship service will be shared with Immigration Equality. It's an organization, a legal organization that provides assistance to LGBT people that are navigating asylum and immigration to the United States. So as we enjoy this beautiful movement, this beautiful music, may you be moved to generosity. Our closing hymn today is Faith of the Larger Liberty. Let us join in singing.
Faith of the larger liberty, source of the light expanding, law of the church that is to be, all bondage notwithstanding. Faith of the free, by thee we live, by all thou givest, and shall give our loyalty commanding. Heroes of faith in every age, far seen self-denying, wrought and increasing heritage, monarch and creed defying. Faith of the free in thy dear name, the costly heritage we claim, their living and their dying. Faith for the people everywhere, whatever their oppression, of all who make the world more fair, living their faith's confession. Faith of the free, whate'er our plight, thy law, thy liberty, thy light shall be our blessed possession.
As we extinguish our chalices, may we see all as it is, and may it be all as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call, the answer now. To build a barrier and a bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience.
Please don't forget the annual meeting will be here in this Zoom meeting room at 11:45. It'll be a very important conversation as we make decisions for the congregation in a tumultuous time. For the voting in the meeting to work properly, each individual member needs to be logged into the meeting on their own device. So to wrap up our time of worship and to prepare our hearts and minds for our business meeting, I leave you with the words of Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace, and we'll see you back here very soon.